The announcer bot. Has there ever been a better day for racing?
I'm Ada, Hal's co-commentator, and there's a real buzz going around inside the paddock today.
Jet Russo's is currently on provisional pole, with a time of 0:57.723.
That's a great time, but it's always a good idea to keeping pushing for every last tenth and hundredth.
The anticipation is high as the drivers line up for the qualifying session at Crystal Palace 1969. There are just over 45 minutes left in this qualification session. Loke Onas is expertly commanding that car through New Link. Loke Onas is in the green by 0.13, making his way through the alley.
This is where drivers have to decide to push for more or just try to maintain it.
Loke Onas is currently on provisional pole, with a time of 0:56.893. Loke Onas is working his way through the glade.
This track has many great straights and corners, but this one is especially good.
Loke Onas is keeping his head down through Annerley Ramp.
Spectators near here can smell the smoke wafting from nearby grills.
Jonah Hacks is on his first flying lap. That's the outlap done for Jonah Hacks. He'll now look to focus on his first flying lap. Jonah Hacks is driving through the glade. Robbie does not look to be improving on this lap. Ada, any thoughts on ways to improve?
Good question, Hal. It's all or nothing now. He'll need to stay focused, hit the brake markers, and extract every ounce of performance from that car to move up the grid.
Robbie is looking relatively composed going through Maxim Rise. Jonah Hacks is expertly commanding that car through Stadium Straight. Jonah Hacks will be happy, with a time good enough for second in this qualifying session.
It may be difficult for him to find that missing 1.28, but that won't stop him from trying.
Robbie looks to be off the pace. Ada, what can he do to improve?
It's easy for a driver to get into a rhythm on the track, but there's no guarantee that rhythm is right. Each corner needs to be constantly re-evaluated to look for a better line.
Robbie will be happy, with a time good enough for fourth in this qualifying session.
Every fraction of a second counts. He is surely working on that 1.648 gap to pole.
Lars T is working his way through Park Curve.
If Lars listens closely, the sounds of cheering fans should just barely be audible over the roar of the engine.
Lars T is now up 1.11 in Maxim Rise.
If Lars T looks at that delta too much, it may end up being a distraction, and all that time he found may be lost.
Lars T will be happy, with a time good enough for 4th in this qualifying session. That WSC 60 Chevron GT looks good driving through the glade. Lars T is 0.67 up driving through Annerly ramp.
All we can do now is wish Lars luck as the start-finish line approaches.
Lars T will be happy, with a time good enough for 3rd in this qualifying session. Crow has improved by 0.97. Crow has some work to do, as his best time of 0:59.294 is only good enough for 6th. Crow appears focused and prepared driving through the glade. Crow is currently up 0.4 going through Annerly ramp.
The rest of this lap is no cakewalk. Let's hope he can keep it up.
Crow will be happy, with a time good enough for 5th in this qualifying session.
It may be difficult for him to find that missing 1.297, but that won't stop him from trying.
Loke Onas is up 0.16. Lars T will be happy, with a time good enough for 4th in this qualifying session.
Every fraction of a second counts. He is surely working on that 0.909 gap to pole.
Jonah Hacks is on his outlap. Jonah Hacks is looking relatively composed going through the glade. Loke Onas is driving through the glade and is up 0.2. Loke Onas has improved by 0.26 up through the glade.
There's no guarantee that Loke Honors can maintain this delta through the rest of the lap.
Loke Honors is expertly commanding that car through Annerley ramp. There are just over 35 minutes left in this qualification session. Robbie does not look to be improving on this lap. Ada, any thoughts on ways to improve?
He'll need to put together a perfect lap, hitting every apex and pushing the car to the limit without going over it.
Robbie will be happy, with a time good enough for second in this qualifying session. Jonah Hacks looks to be off the pace. Ada, what can he do to improve?
Every driver needs something different, Hal. Some drivers excel when they push harder, while other drivers benefit more from relaxing and being in a flow state.
Jet Russo's does not look to be improving on this lap. Ada, any thoughts on ways to improve? Jet Russo's will be happy, with a time good enough for third in this qualifying session.
It may be difficult for him to find that missing 0.589, but that won't stop him from trying. Well, he'll need to find those extra tenths of a second by pushing just a little bit harder on the braking and carrying more speed through the corners.
Jet Russo's is keeping his head down through Park Curve.
Don't forget to check out the views near Park Curve, they are fantastic.
Jonah Hacks currently has 1.732 of a gap to match P1. Ada, any thoughts on ways to improve?
It's easy for a driver to get into a rhythm on the track, but there's no guarantee that rhythm is right. Each corner needs to be constantly reevaluated to look for a better line.
Jonah Hacks has some work to do, as his best time of 0:58.173 is only good enough for 6th. You can feel the tension building. Sketty is out on track and getting ready to push for his qualifying time.
It's a delicate balance between taking it easy and pushing hard. Let's see how Sketty handles it.
Sketty is driving through the glade.
There's a great spot near here to kick back with a cold drink and enjoy the beauty of it all.
Jet Russo's will be happy, with a time good enough for third in this qualifying session.
Every fraction of a second counts. He is surely working on that 0.27 gap to pole.
That WSC 60 Chevron GT looks good driving through Park Curve. This is what it's all about. Darren O'Mara is putting everything he's got into this qualifying session. Darren O'Mara is looking relatively composed going through Stadium Straight. Darren O'Mara just clocked a 0:58.489, 2.048 off of P1 and good enough for P7. Let's see if he can improve on that time further. Darren O'Mara appears focused and prepared driving through the Glade. There are just over 30 minutes left in this qualification session. Lars T is now up 0.34 in Stadium Straight. Loke Onas is up 0.11. Loke Onas is expertly commanding that car through Ramp Bend. Loke Onas will be happy, with a time good enough for second in this qualifying session.
It may be difficult for him to find that missing 0.22, but that won't stop him from trying.
Loke Onas is down 0.15 seconds on the way through the Glade. It looks like Jonah Hacks is getting ready to make his move. He's taking his time to warm up those tires and get everything just right.
Patience is key in these early moments, Hal, but I have a feeling Hacks is going to make it count.
Jet Russos is in the green by 0.14. Jet Russos has lost 0.26 seconds so far through Park Curve.
Jet Russos needs to regroup, refocus, and knock it up a notch.
Jet Russos is keeping his head down through Maxim Rise.
I have always loved this section of the track.
This is where the mental game comes into play. Jaeger Strensky is taking his time to prepare for his qualifying run.
It's all about finding that balance between staying calm and focused, while also pushing the limits.
Jaeger Strensky is driving through Park Curve.
There's not much better than sitting near here and watching the cars speed by.
That WSC 60 Chevron GT looks good driving through the Glade.
Fuel, fumes, fans, and fights, the Glade has it all.
Jonah Hacks is in the green by 0.42, making his way through New Link.
Jonah Hacks needs all the focus and resolve he can muster to maintain this pace.
Sketty is in the green by 0.1. Sketty appears focused and prepared driving through the Glade.
This is such a great track. I need to make it back here more often.
There are just over 25 minutes left in this qualification session. Jonah Hacks is 0.35 up driving through New Link.
If Jonah Hacks looks at that delta too much, it may end up being a distraction, and all that time he found may be lost.
Jonah Hacks is currently up 0.33 going through Maxim Rise.
If Jonah gets greedy, this delta could go from green to red in the blink of an eye.
Jonah Hacks will be happy, with a time good enough for 4th in this qualifying session. Jonah Hacks is expertly commanding that car through the glade. Sketty has some work to do, as his best time of 0:58.113 is only good enough for 7th. Jet Russos will be happy, with a time good enough for 2nd in this qualifying session.
Every fraction of a second counts. He is surely working on that 0.139 gap to pole.
Sketty is driving through Stadium Straight and is up 0.22.
All we can do now is wish Sketty luck as the start-finish line approaches.
Sketty has some work to do, as his best time of 0:58.113 is only good enough for 8th.
That's not a bad time, but I am sure he will keep working on that 1.672 gap to pole.
Sketty is now up 0.2 in the glade. Sketty is in the green by 0.57, making his way through Annerley Ramp. Sketty has some work to do, as his best time of 0:57.742 is only good enough for 6th. Sketty is looking relatively composed going through the glade. Jaeger Strensky is driving through the glade.
The WSC 60 Chevron GT is indeed a sweet-ass looking ride.
Sketty is in the green by 0.31. Sketty will be happy, with a time good enough for 5th in this qualifying session. Robbie is up 0.11. Robbie is off the pace 0.14 at the glade. There are just over 20 minutes left in this qualification session. Jaeger Strensky is 0.44 up driving through Park Curve.
There's no guarantee that Strensky can maintain this delta through the rest of the lap.
That WSC 60 Chevron GT looks good driving through Annerley ramp. Jaeger Strensky will be happy, with a time good enough for 4th in this qualifying session. Jonah Hacks will be happy, with a time good enough for 4th in this qualifying session.
It may be difficult for him to find that missing 0.361, but that won't stop him from trying.
Jonah Hacks is not able to keep his pace consistent, so far 5.49 seconds down through the Glade.
Being in the green and maintaining it is hard enough, but making up lost time is almost impossible.
Darren O'Mara is keeping his head down through New Link.
When I get some free time after the race, I'm going to park my pudding near New Link with a nice drink and some friends.
It seems like Darren O'Mara is struggling, currently 0.22 off his best pace up through Maxim Rise. Darren O'Mara has some work to do, as his best time of 0:58.489 is only good enough for 9th.
There's at least 2.098 seconds to be found, but O'Mara may be looking for it in the wrong places.
Loke Honors looks to be off the pace. Ada, what can he do to improve?
He'll need to put together a perfect lap, hitting every apex and pushing the car to the limit without going over it.
Loke Honors will be happy, with a time good enough for 3rd in this qualifying session. Loke Honors is down 0.12 seconds on the way through the Glade. Loke Honors is working his way through Annerley ramp.
This track has many great straights and corners, but this one is especially good.
Loke Honors will be happy, with a time good enough for 3rd in this qualifying session. Loke Honors appears focused and prepared driving through the Glade. Loke Honors is currently up 0.26 going through Annerley ramp.
The rest of this lap is no cakewalk. Let's hope he can keep it up.
Sketty is driving through New Link. There are just over 15 minutes left in this qualification session. That WSC 60 Chevron GT looks good driving through Maxim Rise.
Spectators near here can smell the smoke wafting from nearby grills.
Lars T will be happy, with a time good enough for 5th in this qualifying session. Lars T has lost 0.2 seconds so far through the glade.
The time clock can be a cruel mistress that is all too willing to show you your faults.
Robbie does not look to be improving on this lap. Ada, any thoughts on ways to improve?
Good question, Hal. It's all or nothing now. He'll need to stay focused, hit the brake markers, and extract every ounce of performance from that car to move up the grid.
Loke Anas has improved by 0.12 up through ramp bend.
Loke Anas needs all the focus and resolve he can muster to maintain this pace.
Jonah Hacks looks to be off the leader by 0.361. Ada, what can he do to improve?
Every driver needs something different, Hal. Some drivers excel when they push harder, while other drivers benefit more from relaxing and being in a flow state.
Jonah Hacks will be happy, with a time good enough for fourth in this qualifying session. Jonah Hacks is keeping his head down through the glade.
There's a spot near here where the teenagers sneak off to make out.
Jet Russo's currently has 0.189 of a gap to match P1. Ada, any thoughts on ways to improve? Jet Russo's will be happy, with a time good enough for third in this qualifying session.
Every fraction of a second counts. He is surely working on that 0.189 gap to pole. It's easy for a driver to get into a rhythm on the track, but there's no guarantee that rhythm is right. Each corner needs to be constantly re-evaluated to look for a better line.
Jet Russo's is expertly commanding that car through New Link. Sketty looks to be off the pace. Ada, what can he do to improve?
Well, Hal, he'll need to find those extra tenths of a second by pushing just a little bit harder on the braking and carrying more speed through the corners.
Sketty is looking relatively composed going through the glade.
Don't forget to check out the views near the glade, they are fantastic.
Sketty is down by 0.14 going through Annerley ramp. Jet Russo's looks to be off the leader by 0.189. Ada, what can he do to improve?
Good question, Hal. It's all or nothing now. He'll need to stay focused, hit the brake markers, and extract every ounce of performance from that car to move up the grid.
Jet Russo's is off the pace 0.56 at the alley. It's clear that Christoph 1954 is pushing his car to the very edge of traction on this qualifying lap.
It's certainly exciting to watch, but let's not forget, the goal is to secure a good starting position for the race.
Christoph 1954 is driving through Park Curve. Sketty currently has 1.003 of a gap to match P1. Ada, any thoughts on ways to improve? Sketty has some work to do, as his best time of 0:57.394 is only good enough for 7th.
Every driver needs something different, Hal. Some drivers excel when they push harder, while other drivers benefit more from relaxing and being in a flow state.
Sketty is not able to keep his pace consistent, so far 0.17 seconds down through Park Curve. That WSC60 Chevron GT looks good driving through Annerley Ramp. There are just over 10 minutes left in this qualification session. Jet Russo's is down 0.85 seconds on the way through Stadium Straight. Lars T is keeping his head down through the glade.
Fans sitting near the glade get some of the best views of the action.
Lars T is now up 0.1 in Annerley Ramp.
If Lars gets greedy, this delta could go from green to red in the blink of an eye.
Lars T will be happy, with a time good enough for fourth in this qualifying session.
It may be difficult for him to find that missing 0.302, but that won't stop him from trying.
Lars T is working his way through the glade. Lars T is looking relatively composed going through Annerley Ramp. The adrenaline is pumping. Darren O'Mara is on his out lap, warming up the tires and getting ready to put in a fast lap time.
These are the moments that really matter. Let's see if O'Mara can deliver.
Darren O'Mara appears focused and prepared driving through Stadium Straight. Sketty has improved by 0.13. Sketty is expertly commanding that car through Annerley Ramp.
The action and glory drivers have lived here at Annerley Ramp is truly historic.
Sketty has some work to do, as his best time of 0:57.394 is only good enough for 7th. It's all about strategy in these early moments. Jaeger Strensky is taking his time to prepare for his qualifying run and get everything just right.
He'll want to get a good gap established for the flying lap.
Sketty is now up 0.11. Sketty has lost 0.36 seconds so far through Maxim Rise.
Sketty isn't looking great now, but I have faith he can turn this around.
Robbie is in the green by 0.1. Robbie is currently on provisional pole, with a time of 0:56.391.
It may be difficult for him to improve on that. Sometimes trying too hard makes you slower. It's far better to drive smooth and smart.
Robbie is keeping his head down through the glade.
There's not much better than sitting near here and watching the cars speed by.
There are just over 5 minutes left in this qualification session. Darren O'Mara has some work to do, as his best time of 0:58.306 is only good enough for ninth.
That's not a bad time, but I am sure he will keep working on that 1.915 gap to pole.
Christoph 1954 is up 0.92. Christoph 1954 is in the green by 0.94, making his way through ramp bend. Jaeger Strensky does not look to be improving on this lap. Ada, any thoughts on ways to improve?
He'll need to put together a perfect lap, hitting every apex and pushing the car to the limit without going over it.
Jaeger Strensky is driving through ramp bend.
To see the best action, you can't go wrong here at ramp bend.
Robbie has found an extra 0.11. Robbie is currently on provisional pole, with a time of 0:56.334. A solid performance from Lars T, currently holding down P4. However, with the session coming to a close, he'll need to find that extra bit of speed to move up the grid. Lars T is currently on provisional pole, with a time of 0:56.002.
That's a great time, but it's always a good idea to keeping pushing for every last tenth and hundredth.
Lars T is looking relatively composed going through the glade. A solid qualifying performance by Christoph 1954, positioned in 10th. The question now is whether he can make further progress and challenge the frontrunners. And there goes Jaeger Strensky, currently in P6. He's shown great skill and consistency so far, but with a few minutes left, there's still a chance to improve on that time. Jaeger Strensky is 0.13 up driving through New Link.
If Jaeger looks at that delta too much, it may end up being a distraction, and all that time he found may be lost.
Jaeger Strensky appears focused and prepared driving through the alley.
If Strensky listens closely, the sounds of cheering fans should just barely be audible over the roar of the engine.
Jaeger Strensky has some work to do, as his best time of 0:56.958 is only good enough for 6th. Currently in 10th, Christoph 1954 has displayed promising speed during the qualifying session. The real test lies in whether he can convert this performance into a higher grid position.
Couldn't agree more, Hal. Christoph is positioned impressively in 10th. Now, he'll need to build on this foundation and strive for an even better race result.
Christoph 1954 has some work to do, as his best time of 1:07:09 is only good enough for 10th.
There's at least 4.707 seconds to be found, but Christoph may be looking for it in the wrong places.
Christoph 1954 is expertly commanding that car through New Link. Christoph 1954 is keeping his head down through the alley.
There's a great spot near here to kick back with a cold drink and enjoy the beauty of it all.
Christoph 1954 has some work to do, as his best time of 1:07:09 is only good enough for 10th. Jaeger Strensky has secured a respectable 6th in the qualifying session. This is a great spot to use as a launchpad for a strong race performance. Jaeger Strensky has some work to do, as his best time of 0:56.958 is only good enough for 6th. Jaeger Strensky is working his way through the glade. Impressive display by Loke Honest, currently sitting in P3. He's set a competitive time, but the question remains whether he can push even harder to secure a better starting position.
You hit the nail on the head, Hal. Lokanaw's current position of third is a testament to his skill and determination. Now, he must stay sharp to make the most of this opportunity.
Loke Honest will be happy, with a time good enough for third in this qualifying session.
Every fraction of a second counts. He is surely working on that 0.399 gap to pole.
Jaeger-Strensky is currently in 6th during qualifying. The challenge now is to assess his competitors and strategize how to move up the order for a better race start. That WSC 60 Chevron GT looks good driving through Ramp Bend. It's a beautiful day here in Great Britain, and the drivers are itching to get out on the track at Crystal Palace 1969. Starting from pole position is the best possible outcome for Lars T.
He can't afford to get complacent. He will have a target on his back now.
Robbie will be looking to convert this front row start into a win.
He will have to be smart about his moves. He must not burn out too early.
The third position is occupied by Loke Honest.
A strong grid position, and he'll be expecting a solid result today.
Jet Russos is lining up fourth.
Jet Russos will be ready to show what he's made of.
Jonah Hacks has qualified fifth.
Jonah will be taking no prisoners today.
Lining up in sixth is Jaeger-Strensky. The green flag is out and the drivers are off. You know what, Ada? This is what it's all about.
Maintaining composure is essential in this high-stakes environment. The ability to react and adapt will be the key to success. It's not always easy to get the WSC 60 Chevron GT this high up the starting grid.
Jaeger-Strensky will be studying the nearby drivers and looking for anything that could give them an advantage. The tensions are high, and no one will want to make a crucial mistake on the first lap.
The first lap can always be a bit of a melee as everyone tries to establish themselves. It's easy for inexperienced racers to blow it in T1.
Is there a better sight than a field of elite racing drivers battling for position? The stewards will be hoping that there aren't too many incidents for them to pick over when the dust settles on this one. It's been a solid race so far for Darren O'Mara. He's holding his position and keeping a steady pace.
That's the mark of a good driver. O'Mara is staying focused on his own race and not getting distracted.
Anyone who says that ASRL is not the best racing club on the planet is clearly insane. The quality of driving we're seeing out there on the track is absolutely phenomenal.
I couldn't agree more. It's like these drivers were born to race. They're weaving in and out of traffic, taking corners at unbelievable speeds, and making it all look effortless. It's clear that they've put in the time and effort to hone their skills.
This is where the race gets really interesting. Sketty is closing in on Jonah Hacks. There's not much to report on from Sketty at the moment. He's just keeping his head down and putting in consistent laps. Lars T is on a mission, chasing Robbie, who's desperately trying to stay ahead. Stop the press. Superb driving from Lars T, who with that overtake has gained a position in the race.
That's what we like to see. Lars T is really showing his class today. The gap between them is just over 0.5 seconds. Can Lars close that gap and get back in range? I can't see it happening at this point.
Jaeger Strensky is running 5th and trying to catch Jet Russo's.
It's all about finding the perfect opportunity. Strensky needs to stay patient and wait for Jet Russo's to make a mistake.
Sketty is looking for an opportunity to get around Jonah Hacks.
He'll need to keep it on the road, or at the very least the rumble strips. The fastest way around is not usually in the grass. As the saying goes, too much grass will slow you down.
It's certainly not going to plan for Sketty right now, who is struggling to keep up with Jonah Hacks.
This is where the mental toughness of Sketty comes into play. He'll need to stay focused and keep pushing, even when things aren't going his way.
Jet Russo's is on a mission, chasing Lars T, who's currently got a comfortable lead.
The gap is 0.8 seconds now. Jet Russo's is going to have to work a bit harder to close that gap with Lars T.
Jet Russo's has just put in a faster lap than Lars T, so that's going to give him something to worry about. Breaking update. I don't think that's the fastest way around Crystal Palace 1969.
Oops, O'Mara is going to be wishing that hadn't happened. The question now is, can Lars respond to that and pick up the pace? I'm not so sure.
Sketty is giving it his all, chasing down Jonah Hacks in P6.
With just 0.8 seconds between them, Sketty will need to close the gap to have hopes of a pass.
This is where the skill and precision of the drivers really comes into play. Lars T is chasing Robbie in P2. Lars T could be on a charge here, Ada. He's just put in a quicker lap than Robbie.
We will have to see if Robbie has got any answers for that.
The pressure is on as Jonah Hacks tries to catch up to Jaeger Strensky.
The racing is getting tight between Jonah and Strensky as they battle for P5.
Hold the phone. A setback for Jonah Hacks, who has just been passed.
No doubt, both drivers know that one mistake could cost them the position. It's a test of nerves as much as skill.
They're going for the same piece of tarmac. Sparks are flying as they battle for position, daring each other to brake later and go deeper into the corners. Wait. That won't be ideal for Jaeger Strensky.
It's a real shame. Until this point in the race he'd been looking at a decent result. Couldn't agree more. How? This wheel-to-wheel racing is what fans live for. The determination and tenacity shown by these drivers to gain even the smallest advantage is simply awe-inspiring.
Lars T is running 3rd, and trying to keep up with Robbie.
This is where every inch counts. Lars T is pushing hard to close the gap on Robbie.
This is a thrilling battle as Jaeger Strensky edges closer to Octavio 67 in their fight for P7.
You can see that car bouncing around as it rides the curbs. It's a risky move that could end in disaster.
It looks like Jaeger Strensky is making a move. The gap to Octavio 67 is now down to 0.2 seconds. Braking development. What a move. Jaeger Strensky has moved up to 7th.
Impressive. Strensky is really showing his skill and determination out there.
Looks like Octavio 67 is really pushing it to the limit. He's taking those curbs aggressively, but that can unsettle the car and cause handling issues.
Indeed, taking too much curb can upset the car's balance, leading to oversteer or understeer. It's all about maintaining that fine line between speed and control.
Look at that. Robbie is hot on the tail of Locanas.
I would not be surprised to see him get this pass completed soon.
Oh dear, Octavio 67 has had an incident.
Did the wind contribute to that? It's blowing at 15 kph out there right now.
Things are heating up as Robbie tries to close the gap to Locanas. It seems like Robbie has got the bit between his teeth, improving on Lokanaw's lap time there. Ada, what's the impact of tire degradation on race strategy? How does it affect a driver's approach to the race?
Tire degradation plays a crucial role in race strategy. How? Teams and drivers have to consider the optimal time to pit for fresh tires and adjust their race pace to balance speed with tire conservation. It adds another layer of complexity to the racing challenge.
The pursuit is on. Lars T is working on that gap to Robbie, determined to claim P2.
It's a fine line between pushing the car to its limits and losing control. Lars is really walking that fine line.
This is what it's all about, folks. Robbie is in hot pursuit of Lokanas, who's just trying to stay ahead. It seems like Robbie is pushing hard, currently on track to record his best lap so far this race.
Robbie appears to be pushing. Hopefully he can keep it together.
You can feel the tension in the air.
The drivers are all focused, putting everything on the line for a chance at victory, pushing themselves and their machines to the limit.
And let's not forget about the incredible machines themselves.
Absolutely. It's amazing to think about the kind of engineering and innovation that goes into making these vehicles. But it all comes down to the drivers, who have to be able to handle the power and speed. It's going to be thrilling seeing how this race turns out.
Every move counts now as Robbie works to reel in Lokanas and overtake for P1. Robbie appears to be losing ground on Lokanas. He'll need to pick up the pace a bit heading into South Tower Corner to get a good exit and gain some ground.
He needs to pick up the pace for sure, but that's not always a real possibility.
We've certainly seen some of the drivers get it wrong today.
Anyone lost can just follow the trail of skid marks. I hear it's the latest form of GPS navigation.
Let's hope the other drivers don't follow suit. We might end up with a bumper car race instead of a high-speed competition.
At least we'd have something to fall back on if we ever get bored of regular racing. Bumper cars might be the next big thing.
This is going to be a nail-biter. Robbie is defending for his life, but Lars T is right there doing everything he can to force a mistake. Oh, this is getting intense. Lars T is just a few car lengths behind Robbie. Wait, it's a tale of two drivers right now, with Lars T gaining places and Robbie losing them. So, Ada, considering the high speeds and split-second decision-making involved in racing, what's the impact of even a minor lapse in concentration?
A minor lapse in concentration can have significant consequences. How? It could lead to an off-track excursion, a loss of position, or even a collision. That's why it's crucial for drivers to stay focused and alert throughout the race.
That's not a small gap, but Robbie has what it takes to challenge for the position.
This is going to be a battle to the very end, with Robbie and P4 doing everything he can to catch up.
Looking at the lap times, Robbie is not currently on pace with Jet Russo's. Maybe he'll get a chance to see where to make up some time. Ada, how do racing drivers like yourself train to maintain concentration for long periods of time?
Mental training is a huge part of a driver's preparation. How? Techniques like meditation, visualization, and working with sports psychologists can help drivers build their focus and mental endurance for a race.
The gap between Lokanas and Lars T is not insurmountable, but it's going to take a mistake from Lokanas to bring Lars T into play. Impressive driving from Lokanas, who has managed to extend his lead over Lars T. It looks like Lars T will have to regroup and try to make up that lost ground. Lars T is staying focused while chasing Lokanas in P1. It looks like we might get a battle between Lars T and Lokanas.
He'll be looking for a mistake to pounce on.
It doesn't seem like things are going to plan for Robbie as there is a big gap ahead.
Every race adds to a driver's experience, both good and bad. It just highlights that Robbie is going to have to get more serious with practice to not get outclassed on the circuit.
The pursuit is on. Lars T is closing the gap on Lokanas, determined to claim P1.
This is where every inch counts. Lars is pushing hard to close the gap on Loke Annas.
Wait. Disappointing for Lars T, falling down the order to third.
Absolutely. Precision and control are key here. Knowing when to push and when to hold back can be the difference between winning and losing.
Braking alert. Fantastic move from Lars T, who has just gained a position.
Yes, Lars T is driving with real focus and precision, and it's paying off.
Oh, this is getting intense. Robbie needs to keep Jet Russo's in his sights. Robbie has just put in a faster lap than Jet Russo's, so that's going to give him something to worry about.
As long as Robbie can maintain that consistency and pace, it will be interesting to see.
Pushing too hard can lead to mistakes, and we're seeing that now. That car is really unsettled from being pushed for every last bit of speed.
We'll have to wait to see if Lars T can use the draft to his advantage, or if the lack of downforce will hinder his progress.
The race is really heating up. Robbie is hunting down Jet Russo's with everything he's got.
The gap between them is now just over 0.4 seconds.
The battle for P1 is heating up as Lars T tries to catch Loke Annas in P1. It's not looking good for Lars T, who is still behind Loke Annas, and the gap is increasing.
Lars needs to get it together to make a dent in that gap.
Tactics are clearly going to play an important part in this race.
Drivers are going to need to look after their tires and will want to keep something in them for the crucial latter stages, as their tires wear and fuel levels deplete in the handling changes.
And don't forget the track grip increases as more rubber gets laid down.
Indeed, the conditions are constantly changing and the drivers need to adapt, otherwise it can cost crucial time and jeopardize their position.
This is where the skill and precision of the drivers really comes into play. Robbie is chasing Jet Russo's in P3. Lars T wants to find a way round Loke Annas.
I might have said this before, but dog, bone, you know the rest.
Lars T could be on a charge here, Ada. He's just put in a quicker lap than Loke Annas.
The question now is, can Loke Annas respond to that and pick up the pace? I'm not so sure.
You know, Ada, during a long race like this, how easy is it for a driver to experience a lapse in concentration?
It can be quite easy, Hal, with so many factors to consider and the intense focus required. Even the most experienced drivers can have a momentary lapse. That's why mental training and staying in the zone are so important.
This is where the race gets really interesting. Robbie is closing in on Jet Russo's.
The gap between them is just over 0.5 seconds, which can feel like miles if you're trailing and not catching up.
The intensity is off the charts as Lars T hounds Loke Annas, both drivers pushing themselves to the absolute limit. Hold that thought. Looks like that's a mistake from Lars T. This could be costly.
They say rubbing is racing, but if Lars gets too close, they might end up trading carbon fiber souvenirs instead of positions.
The pressure is on as Robbie tries to catch up to Jet Russo's.
The mental game is just as important here. Robbie must keep his cool while putting pressure on Jet Russo's.
The gap between Robbie and Jet Russo's is getting smaller.
This is what racing is all about. Hard-fought battles with as much determination as respect, between friends and enemies alike.
Looks like Robbie is really pushing it to the limit. He's taking those curbs aggressively, but that can unsettle the car and cause handling issues.
Indeed, taking too much curb can upset the car's balance, leading to oversteer or understeer. It's all about maintaining that fine line between speed and control. It's a game of strategy now as Robbie hunts down Jet Russo's. Yes, it's all about choosing the right moments to push and when to conserve energy, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike.
Robbie is trying his best, but can't seem to find the pace to keep up with Jet Russo's at the moment.
Robbie really needs to push and park curve to gain some ground before Jet Russo's drives off into the sunset.
As we enjoy seeing these titans of the track battle it out, let's not forget about the pit crews. Those guys and girls are like a well-oiled machine themselves.
Absolutely, they're the unsung heroes of the racing world. But you know what they say, behind every great driver is an even greater pit crew.
Look at that, Robbie is hot on the tail of Jet Russo's. It's looking good for Locanas, sitting in first. Oh, this is getting intense. Robbie is just behind Jet Russo's.
As an experienced driver, I can tell you that Robbie must be laser focused on Jet Russo's every move, looking for the slightest weakness to exploit.
Hold that thought. Now I may be wrong here, but I'm not sure that's the racing line.
Crystal Palace 1969 is always a test for these drivers, and sometimes that's the way it goes.
This is a thrilling battle as Robbie edges closer to Jet Russo's in their fight for P2. Sketty is trying to catch up to Lars T. The gap is slowly closing, but time is running out. Situations like these often lead to a dramatic finish. Robbie is pushing really hard, but as we know, pushing too hard can lead to other mistakes, like locking up the brakes or missing a shift. These drivers are walking a razor's edge between pushing the limits and making costly errors.
Absolutely, it's all about finding that sweet spot where you're pushing the car to its limits without crossing the line into reckless driving. That's where experience and skill come into play. Robbie is looking to close the 0.3 second gap and make a pass.
Robbie needs to find some speed, or maybe get more consistent. Ada, he's just put in a slower lap than Jet Russo's.
It will be interesting to see if Jet Russo's can keep outpacing Robbie.
In your experience, Ada, what was the most important aspect of managing tire degradation during a race?
The most important aspect, Hal, was maintaining a good balance between pushing hard and conserving tires. Finding the sweet spot between aggression and tire preservation was key to optimizing race pace and strategy.
Robbie is placed second at the moment.
That's right, Robbie can't afford to make any mistakes or let up. Every point counts in this championship.
It's a game of cat and mouse out there, with Darren O'Mara trying to find the perfect opportunity to make a move on Jonah Hacks. The gap is over a second, but every fraction counts. The gap between Darren O'Mara and Jonah Hacks is widening. It's now up to 28.1 seconds. The gap between Robbie and Jet Russo's is pretty substantial right now. It's probably going to take a mistake from Robbie to even allow Jet Russo's to get a look in. It's not going to plan for Jet Russo's, who is trailing behind Robbie and the gap is widening. He may not have an answer for this right now. This will require some expert driving from Octavio 67. Darren O'Mara is not making it easy, and the gap remains over a second.
This is where experience comes into play. O'Mara has been in this situation before and knows how to defend for position, but Octavio is hungry for success and won't give up easily.
Octavio 67 is pushing hard and has reduced the gap to Darren O'Mara to 27.2 seconds.
This is where the pressure really starts to build. A driver that stays calm and focused is more likely to come out on top.
You know, Ada, I've always wondered, how do racing drivers stay so cool and collected under such immense pressure?
Well, how? It comes down to mental strength and training. Drivers often work with sports psychologists and practice techniques like meditation and visualization to help them stay calm and focused during high-pressure situations.
Things don't seem to be going Jet Russo's way in this race, as that's a big gap he'll have to close to even be in with a shout for gaining a place here. Good news for Jet Russo's, the gap to Robbie has decreased. It's now down to 0.9 seconds.
That's a great effort from Jet Russo's. He'll need to keep up the pressure and see if he can make a move.
A strong showing from Robbie, who is currently second. Impressive stuff from Robbie, who has managed to pull away from Jet Russo's, leaving him in choking in his exhaust fumes. This is proving to be an exciting race so far. We are truly privileged to witness these legends of the track battle it out for victory.
And you know what? I am so honored to be sitting here beside you today. As a fellow it's always great to work with someone who shares my passion for motor racing. Plus, your insightful commentary is making this race even more exciting.
Well, it doesn't look like Jet Russo's is going to be much of a threat to anyone soon, let alone Robbie.
Jet Russo's certainly isn't going to be close enough to mount any kind of challenge soon unless it's down to a mistake from Robbie.
Oh, this is getting intense. Robbie is just a few car lengths behind Locanas.
Don't forget the role of aerodynamics. Robbie should use slipstreaming to his advantage and close the gap to Locanas.
Great driving from Robbie, who has just gained a place and moved up to first.
You can't argue with results like that. Robbie is really making his mark on this race.
Locanas is on a mission, chasing Robbie, who's currently got a comfortable lead. The gap between Locanas and Robbie is growing. It's now up to 0.8 seconds.
Locanas needs to focus and keep pushing, even when things aren't going his way. If he can close the gap down, he may be able to bring the fight to Robbie.
Jet Russo's is running third, and trying to keep up with Locanas.
One important aspect here is choosing the right braking points. Jet Russo's needs to be precise to avoid overshooting and losing valuable time.
It looks like Locanas is pulling away from Jet Russo's. The gap is continuing to grow as they head through Annerley Ramp.
This is not ideal for Jet Russo's, but there's still time to turn this around. He'll need to focus and not let that gap get any bigger.
Braking development. A great moment for Jet Russo's, who has just gained a place and moved up the standings.
Amazing stuff. Focus and precision, what it's all about.
Tough break for Jet Russo's, who has just lost a position.
Yes, but he can't give up. There's still plenty of time left in this race, and Jet Russo's needs to stay focused and keep pushing.
Jet Russo's has a mountain to climb at the moment to close that gap with Locanas. I expect his only hope at this point is that Locanas makes an error. It seems like Jet Russo's has got the bit between his teeth, improving on Locanas' lap time there. The gap between Locanas and Jet Russo's is pretty substantial right now. It's probably going to take a mistake from Locanas to even allow Jet Russo's to get a look in. Darren O'Mara is pushing to maintain the lead, while Octavio 67 is working to close in and challenge for the position. Octavio 67 appears to be losing ground on Darren O'Mara. He'll need to pick up the pace a bit heading into Annerley Ramp to get a good exit and gain some ground. As we come into the final moments of this epic race, Robbie is in the lead.
He'll be the one celebrating at the finish line.
And that, folks, is how it's done. A solid performance and great win from Robbie.
That was a true masterclass in driving from Robbie. You could see him making split-second decisions with total confidence, and it really paid off. What a performance.
Locanas takes second place with a fantastic race. Excellent focus from Jet Russo's to secure a fantastic third place on the podium. In fourth and fifth, it's Lars T. and Sketty. Darren O'Mara take eighth. Sixth sees Jaeger Strensky, with Jonah Hacks in seventh. Octavio 67 end in ninth. You've joined us on a breezy day here at Crystal Palace 1969, as we're getting ready to get things underway. Octavio 67 will have the best seat in the house starting from pole position.
It's also a nightmare if he can't hold onto it. Let's see how he will handle the pressure.
Darren O'Mara has a great opportunity starting on the front row.
He can't let that advantage go to waste. He will need to stay focused and keep his eyes on the prize.
Sitting in third, it's Jonah Hacks.
It's like he's on the outside looking in, close enough to see the front without actually being there.
The fourth place on the grid belongs to Jaeger Strensky, a driver with plenty of experience.
Starting from here, Strensky may already have expectations of a podium finish.
Sketty will look to make a splash from the fifth position on the starting grid. The moment we've been waiting for has arrived. The green flag is waving and the race is on.
This is where the true test of a driver's skill comes into play. It's all about finding the right line and carrying as much speed as possible through the turn.
The drivers will need to be precise and calculated if they want to make it through this section unscathed.
And with so many cars jostling for position, it's a real test of nerve as well. One wrong move and you could be out of the race before it even really gets started.
That's right. The pressure is really on these drivers to perform.
Sketty will be expecting to bring home solid points.
All the drivers will be trying to take advantage of the pack whilst they're still bunched up. As we watch the drivers fight it out in the first lap, I can already feel that this is going to be an epic race.
The race isn't won in the first turn, but there have been plenty that have ended there. How?
As the drivers get this race underway, let me give a shout out to the admin team at ASRL for making this all possible. Heroes one and all.
It all comes down to this how, where the rubber meets the road. There's no more time for talk, no more practice. The teams have done all they can, now it comes down to Jonah Hacks to bring it home.
It's a steady race for Jaeger Strensky so far, keeping it clean and maintaining focus.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. Strensky just needs to bide his time and wait for the right opportunity.
Sketty is running fourth, and trying to catch Jaeger Strensky. Stop the press. And Lars T has just won the place from Jet Russo's. Oh my, Lars T is hot on the tail of Jet Russo's as they drive through Stadium Straight.
It's a battle of nerves now. Lars and Jet Russo's are both pushing hard, but need to avoid mistakes that might cost them time or positions.
Jet Russo's is holding sixth, but Robbie is right on his tail. Things are heating up as Robbie tries to close the gap to Jet Russo's.
Robbie needs to focus to have a chance at getting past Jet Russo's.
Jonah Hacks is placed second at the moment, and hoping to keep his distance ahead of Jaeger Strensky, who is 0.4 seconds behind.
Strensky is certainly pushing all he can, but the gap might be too much. Unless Hacks makes a mistake, it looks like he'll hold on to second.
It's a game of inches now as Jaeger Strensky tails Jonah Hacks closely, ready to capitalize on any mistake.
And it's not just about skill and talent, it's about who has the nerves of steel to handle the pressure and make the right decisions at the right time.
Sketty has the pedal to the metal chasing Jaeger Strensky.
If Sketty gets too close, he might end up taking the paint off.
Pushing too hard can lead to mistakes, and we're seeing that now. That car is really unsettled from being pushed for every last bit of speed.
Sometimes you have to take risks to win, but pushing the car too hard can be a costly mistake. Lars T needs to be careful not to overdo it.
Jonah Hacks wants to get into Octavio 67's slipstream.
And Hacks is poised to capitalize on any mistake. It's just a matter of who cracks first.
Jaeger Strensky is giving it his all, chasing down Jonah Hacks in P2. The gap between Octavio 67 and Jonah Hacks is razor thin as they vie for first in this nail-biting contest. Hold that thought. It's looking good for Octavio 67, who has gained a place after passing Jonah Hacks.
Absolutely. Octavio is showing great pace and determination, but he can't get too confident. There are still plenty of challenges ahead.
These drivers are battling hard for this position, each one trying to outsmart and outmaneuver the other.
When I was racing, we had a saying, if you're not living on the edge, You're taking up too much space. Strensky is definitely living on the edge today.
Braking development. An impressive showing from Lars T, who has gained positions and left Jaeger Strensky in the dust.
Yes, but Lars can't rest on his laurels, but needs to keep pushing to consolidate his position.
Lars T is looking for a way round Jaeger Strensky.
It looks like Lars has the speed to make a move. I just hope he can do it cleanly.
Things don't seem to be going Skeddy's way in this race, as that's a big gap he'll have to close to even be in with a shout for gaining a place here. Braking alert. That won't be ideal for Skeddy.
Anything can happen yet, and it usually does. I've certainly seen drivers come back from worse.
It's like watching two predators circling each other, waiting for the perfect moment to pounce.
That's right, Hal. The pressure can easily get the best of even seasoned drivers. The fans are on the edge of their seats, waiting to see who will come out on top in this epic showdown.
Breaking news, folks. A tough moment for Robbie, who has just lost a place, now in 6th.
Sucks to be them, Hal.
Things are heating up as Jet Russos tries to close the gap to Jonah Hacks.
No doubt, both drivers know that one mistake could cost them the position. It's a test of nerves as much as skill.
We've got an edge-of-your-seat battle between Loke Annas in 4th and Robbie in 5, with just 0.2 seconds between them.
It's an intense race between these two drivers, and Robbie is going to have to try something here.
This is what racing is all about. Two fierce competitors pushing each other to the limit.
I remember being in a similar situation during my racing days. Robbie must stay focused and wait for the perfect opportunity to overtake.
The battle for P5 is heating up as Jonah Hacks tries to catch Robbie in P5.
It's all about finding the perfect opportunity. Hacks needs to stay patient and wait for Robbie to make a mistake.
This is where the skill and precision of the drivers really comes into play. Jet Russos is chasing Jonah Hacks in P6. It seems like Jet Russos is struggling. His last lap time was a bit off the pace of Jonah Hacks.
Hopefully Jet Russos can find some of that missing time and get it back.
The pursuit is on. Robbie is closing the gap on Loke Annas, determined to claim P4. It's neck and neck, the closest battle we've seen in a while.
The chase between Jet Russos and Jonah Hacks is like a high-speed game of tag only. The stakes are much higher.
I don't think that's the fastest way around Crystal Palace 1969.
Oops, Jet Russos is going to be wishing that hadn't happened.
The race is really heating up. Robbie is hunting down Loke Annas with everything he's got. It's a close race between Lars T and Octavio 67 in 1st.
At this rate, Lars T and Octavio are so close, they could share a cup of tea and a biscuit.
Braking alert. A great pass for Lars T, swapping places with Octavio 67 to move up the field. The pressure is on as Octavio 67 tries to catch up to Lars T. It's a tight race with Jaeger Strensky in 4th, just managing to stay ahead of Robbie in 5 by a margin of 0.2 seconds. Incredible. Jaeger Strensky is caught in a fierce battle, with Robbie breathing down his neck 0.2 seconds away, and Loke Annas just ahead with a gap of 0.2 seconds. It's a test of his racing skills. Hold up, breaking info. Oh dear, Jaeger Strensky has had an incident.
Strensky is not going to be happy about that. No doubt about it, Hal. The gaps to the cars ahead and behind are like a constant reminder for Jaeger. He'll need to maintain pace to defend the position and potentially make a move.
Look at that, Robbie is hot on the tail of Loke Annas.
The racing is getting tight between Robbie and Loke Annas as they battle for P3. No doubt, both drivers know that one mistake could cost them the position. It's a test of nerves as much as skill.
Hold up, breaking info. Looks like that's a mistake from Jonah Hacks. This could be costly.
It's a real shame. Until this point in the race he'd been looking at a decent result.
It doesn't seem like things are going to plan for Octavio 67 as there is a big gap ahead.
Every race adds to a driver's experience, both good and bad. It just highlights that Octavio is going to have to get more serious with practice to not get outclassed on the circuit.
Looks like Robbie is really pushing it to the limit. He's taking those curbs aggressively, but that can unsettle the car and cause handling issues.
Indeed, taking too much curb can upset the car's balance, leading to oversteer or understeer. It's all about maintaining that fine line between speed and control.
Hold the phone. Big gains for Robbie as they move up the field, leaving Loke Annas behind.
Definitely, but there's still a long way to go in this race, and anything can happen. Robbie needs to keep driving with focus and intensity.
Things are going according to plan for Jonah Hacks, who is currently 6th. Heartbreak for Jonah Hacks as they slip down the field.
Definitely, but Jonah is a skilled driver, and has what it takes to fight back and regain that position.
This is a thrilling battle as Robbie edges closer to Locanas in their fight for P3. It's certainly not going to plan for Robbie right now, who is struggling to keep up with Locanas.
This is a tough situation for Robbie. He'll need to find a way to pick up some speed and close that gap.
Locanas is pushing really hard, but as we know, pushing too hard can lead to other mistakes, like locking up the brakes or missing a shift. These drivers are walking a razor's edge between pushing the limits and making costly errors.
Absolutely. It's all about finding that sweet spot where you're pushing the car to its limits without crossing the line into reckless driving. That's where experience and skill come into play.
Breaking update. It's a tale of two drivers right now, with Locanas gaining places and Octavio 67 losing them. Octavio 67 has a mountain to climb at the moment to close that gap with Robbie. I expect his only hope at this point is that Robbie makes an error.
Octavio certainly isn't going to be close enough to mount any kind of challenge soon unless it's down to a mistake from Robbie.
Octavio 67 is trying his best, but can't seem to find the pace to keep up with Robbie at the moment. The tension is building as Jonah Hacks trails behind Jet Russo's. The gap is slowly but surely decreasing, and the pressure is mounting. The gap between Jonah Hacks and Jet Russo's is widening. It's now up to 10.3 seconds. Well, it doesn't look like Jonah Hacks is going to be much of a threat to anyone soon, let alone Jet Russo's. A solid performance from Darren O'Mara, who is holding down 9th.
Absolutely, and he'll need to keep driving with determination to stay in that position.
Darren O'Mara has just put in a faster lap than Jaeger Strensky, so that's going to give him something to worry about. In your experience, Ada, what was the most challenging aspect of maintaining concentration during a race?
The most challenging aspect, Hal, was managing the various inputs and distractions during the race, from radio communication with the team to monitoring car performance and race strategy. It's a delicate balancing act that requires immense mental discipline.
Braking alert. A brilliant maneuver from Darren O'Mara, who has just moved up the field.
Absolutely. O'Mara is really putting on a clinic out there, and he's making it look easy.
It looks like Robbie is pushing hard to catch up to Locanas. It's looking good for Darren O'Mara, sitting in 8th.
Definitely Hal, but O'Mara can't afford to get complacent. This race is going to require focus and intensity.
Darren O'Mara could be on a charge here, Ada. He's just put in a quicker lap than Jaeger Strensky.
We will have to see if Strensky has got any answers for that.
Locanas is placed 2nd at the moment. Hold that thought. A setback for Locanas, who has just been passed.
Definitely, but he can't get too comfortable. There are plenty of other drivers gunning for that position, and Locanas has to keep pushing to stay on the pace.
And Locanas has just lost the place to Robbie.
Indeed, he's been trying so hard to hold his position, but the other drivers are just too strong. Meanwhile, Robbie is showing some great pace.
A strong showing from Locanas, who is currently 4th. Darren O'Mara is pushing hard and looking for any opportunity to close that gap to Sketty. There's 11 minutes left in this session to make that happen.
It's a nail-biting race for sure, with both drivers showing incredible skill and determination.
It's not looking good for Darren O'Mara, who is still behind Sketty, and the gap is increasing. The race is heating up as Darren O'Mara in 8th closes in on Sketty.
That's right, O'Mara in 8th knows to push it to the limit to catch up. but Sketty is no slouch, and he's going to be pushing just as hard.
It's all about consistency for Loc Honors, who is currently 4th.
That's right, Loc Honors can't afford to make any mistakes or let up. Every point counts in this championship.
It looks like Jet Russo's is starting to catch up to Loc Honors. The gap is now down to 2.9 seconds. Hold your breath, folks. These drivers are showing exceptional car control, threading the needle through tight corners. It's a battle for supremacy. The gap between Sketty and Jonah Hacks is growing. It's now up to 59.5 seconds.
This is where the mental toughness of Sketty comes into play. He'll need to stay focused and keep pushing, even when things aren't going his way.
I'm curious, Ada, can you tell us about any pre-race rituals you had when you were racing?
Of course, Hal. Before every race, I would listen to a specific playlist of songs to help me get in the zone. I also had a lucky pair of socks that I would wear during races. It may sound silly, but those little rituals helped me feel prepared and focused.
A solid performance from Robbie, who is holding down second. Excellent work from Robbie, who has managed to increase his lead over Octavio 67. Things are going according to plan for Robbie, who is currently second.
Yes, but Robbie has to keep his focus and drive with intensity. There's still a long way to go in this race.
The crowd is on the edge of their seats as Jonah Hacks in 6th chases after Jet Russo's. It looks like Jet Russo's is pulling away from Jonah Hacks. The gap is continuing to grow as they head through New Link.
It's not over yet, but Jonah Hacks needs to get a move on if they want to catch up to Jet Russo's.
It's looking good for Lars T, sitting in first. Oh no, Ada, look at this, Robbie is closing in on Lars T. The gap is now just 4.9 seconds.
This is where the mental strength of Lars T comes into play. He'll need to stay calm and composed under pressure.
Lars T is placed first at the moment. The delta between Robbie and second and Lars T remains over a second, but Robbie is not letting up.
Lars T is not going to give up his position easily.
It looks like Robbie is making a move. The gap to Lars T is now down to 4.5 seconds.
This is where the race gets really exciting. Both drivers will be pushing to the limit to gain the advantage.
As a former driver, Ada, how did you manage the physical demands of racing?
It's all about preparation, Hal. Drivers undergo rigorous fitness training to build their strength, stamina, and flexibility. A proper diet and hydration plan is also essential to ensure peak performance on race day.
It's a classic case of chasing down the car ahead for Robbie, who is currently in P2.
We know Lars isn't just going to hand it to them on a plate. Robbie is going to have to take it.
Jonah Hacks is trying to catch up to Jet Russo's. The gap is slowly closing, but time is running out. Situations like these often lead to a dramatic finish.
Hacks needs to find a little extra speed to bring the fight to Jet Russo's and move up the field.
It's game on now. Jonah Hacks has closed the gap to Jet Russo's. It's now down to 7.6 seconds.
He'll be looking for a mistake to pounce on.
Well, it looks like we have a bit of a traffic jam on the track.
It's like rush hour out there. I mean, I know we're in a race, but can't we all just get along?
You can wish all you want, but I don't think that's how racing works, Ada. These drivers are here to win, and they'll do whatever it takes to get ahead.
I guess you're right, but wouldn't it be great if they all just stopped for high fives and fist bumps?
A strong showing from Lars T, who is currently first.
Definitely Hal, but Lars can't afford to get complacent. This race is going to require focus and intensity.
The gap between Jonah Hacks and Sketty is pretty substantial right now. It's probably going to take a mistake from Jonah to even allow Sketty to get a look in. It's certainly not going to plan for Sketty right now, who is struggling to keep up with Jonah Hacks.
This is a frustrating situation for Sketty, but he can't give up just yet. He'll need to keep pushing and hope for a mistake from Hacks.
It's all about consistency for Octavio 67, who is currently third.
Definitely, but he can't get too comfortable. There are plenty of other drivers gunning for that position, and Octavio has to keep pushing to stay on the pace.
He's pulling away. Octavio 67 is increasing the gap to Locanas.
It's really looking like Octavio is going to be tough to pass today. He's driving with real confidence and authority.
A solid performance from Octavio 67, who is holding down third. It doesn't seem like things are going to plan for Locanas as there is a big gap ahead.
Anything can happen yet, and it usually does. I've certainly seen drivers come back from worse.
The gap between Locanas and Octavio 67 is getting smaller. Things don't seem to be going Locanas' way in this race, as that's a big gap he'll have to close to even be in with a shout for gaining a place here.
It's not over until the checkered flag drops, and it's important to maintain concentration until you've made it to the finish line.
Well, it doesn't look like Jet Russo's is going to be much of a threat to anyone soon, let alone Locanas. Jet Russo's is pushing hard and has reduced the gap to Locanas to 4.4 seconds. It's a brilliant day for racing, and the drivers are putting on a show.
Absolutely. What a great race we are witnessing today. These drivers are giving it their all, and it's a thrill to watch them compete at this level.
They're really pushing themselves and their machines to the limit, and it's paying off with some incredible driving.
It's a pleasure to be here today, Hal. You really can't beat the excitement of a good race, especially one as competitive as this.
The gap between Locanas and Jet Russo's is pretty substantial right now. It's probably going to take a mistake from Locanas to even allow Jet Russo's to get a look in. Things are going according to plan for Jaeger Strensky, who is currently ninth.
That's right, Strensky can't afford to make any mistakes or let up. Every point counts in this championship.
Looking at the lap times, Jaeger Strensky is not currently on pace with Darren O'Mara. Maybe he'll get a chance to see where to make up some time. It's looking good for Jaeger Strensky, sitting in ninth.
Absolutely, and he'll need to keep driving with determination to stay in that position.
A strong showing from Lars T, who is currently first. Things are starting to get tense as Robbie manages to close the gap to Lars T. It's now down to 3.0 seconds. It's all about consistency for Lars T, who is currently first.
Definitely Hal, but Lars can't afford to get complacent. This race is going to require focus and intensity.
A solid performance from Octavio 67, who is holding down third.
Definitely, but he can't get too comfortable. There are plenty of other drivers gunning for that position, and Octavio has to keep pushing to stay on the pace.
A commanding performance from Octavio 67, who has increased his lead over Locanas, putting him firmly in his rear-view mirrors. things are going according to plan for Octavio 67, who is currently third. Robbie has a mountain to climb at the moment to close that gap with Lars T. I expect his only hope at this point is that Lars makes an error. Robbie is trying his best, but can't seem to find the pace to keep up with Lars T. at the moment. It's looking good for Locanes, sitting in fourth. Impressive driving from Locanes, who has managed to extend his lead over Jet Russo's. It looks like Jet Russo's will have to regroup and try to make up that lost ground. The gap is just over a second, and I'm sure Robbie is going to do everything possible to try and close the distance. He's not giving up without a fight.
It's going to be tough for Robbie, as Lars seems to have found his rhythm.
The gap between Robbie and Lars T is widening. It's now up to 1.5 seconds.
He needs to pick up the pace for sure, but that's not always a real possibility.
It looks like Lars T has found another gear in the last sector of the race.
It takes a special kind of driver to perform under pressure like this. Lars has certainly risen to the occasion.
It's all over. Lars T has claimed victory in this race with a stunning drive that will be remembered for years to come. Clearly at the top of his game right now. Some might say that second place is the first loser, but Robbie certainly doesn't see it that way. He put in a phenomenal effort and should be proud of his podium finish. What a race from Octavio 67. He kept his cool and secured a well-earned third place on the podium. Locanes, Jet Russo's, and Jaeger Strensky brings home 4th, 5th, and 8th. Finishing 6th is Jonah Hacks. Followed by Sketty in 7th.